Christopher Reeve's portrayal of Superman remains one of the most iconic and beloved performances in the history of cinema. Released in 1978, Superman presented a vision of the legendary superhero that, despite the character's seemingly cheesy and Boy Scout nature, became an instant classic. While the film's groundbreaking special effects and faithful adherence to comic book lore were undoubtedly significant, the true key to the film's lasting success and the continued popularity of Superman lay in Reeve's unique interpretation of the character. Reeve's performance transcended the role of a mere comic book hero. He brought Superman to life in a way that made him feel real, relatable, and human. He played not only the Man of Steel, but also the moral embodiment of hope and goodness. And in doing so, he created a lasting legacy that continues to influence superhero portrayals to this day. At the core of Christopher Reeve's portrayal of Superman was his ability to make an otherwise fantastical character feel human and believable. Superman, after all, is an alien from another planet, with godlike powers. He can fly, bend steel with his bare hands, and see through walls. He is far removed from the realm of ordinary human experience. Yet Reeve approached the character not as a figure entirely above human comprehension, but as a man whose extraordinary abilities didn't define him. Rather, it was his dedication to moral integrity, to truth, justice, and compassion that became the hallmark of his character. What made Reeve's Superman truly stand out was his unwavering commitment to playing the role with sincerity, earnestness, and an inherent decency that avoided even a hint of irony or camp. While other portrayals of superheroes risk becoming self-aware or overly comedic, Reeve managed to keep Superman grounded, embodying the qualities that made him an enduring symbol of virtue, without ever winking at the audience or acknowledging how outlandish the character might seem. Superman wasn't portrayed as someone with an inflated sense of superiority or power. Instead, he was a man who sincerely believed in doing good because it was simply the right thing to do. This commitment to humanity made the character's powers less significant in terms of storytelling. While Superman's strength and invulnerability were certainly important to the narrative, it was Reeve's emphasis on Superman's inner qualities, his kindness, humility, and devotion to protecting the innocent, that made him so compelling. In a time when cinema was filled with increasingly cynical heroes, Reeve's portrayal gave people a character they could aspire to be, a man who was almost too perfect, yet who embodied ideals that any person could strive to emulate. One of the most impressive aspects of Reeve's portrayal was his mastery of the dual identities of Superman and his alter ego, Clark Kent. The challenge of portraying a character with two distinct personas is one that many actors struggle with, but Reeve excelled in this regard. He skillfully created two separate and distinct characters, and this ability to seamlessly shift between the two identities enhanced the complexity and depth of his performance. As Clark Kent, Reeve adopted a posture and demeanor that were markedly different from his Superman persona. His Clark was shy, nervous, and awkward, a mild-mannered reporter with a tendency to fumble around. The physical transformation was subtle but effective. Reeve hunched slightly, lowered his voice, and adjusted his facial expressions to convey Clark's more socially awkward, less confident nature. His portrayal of Clark wasn't just a disguise for Superman. It gave the character a life of its own, making him feel like a fully realized, believable person. The awkwardness, however, never felt forced. Reeve's Clark Kent was endearing, relatable, and human, a far cry from the caricatures often seen in the pages of comics. However, when Reeve switched to Superman, the transformation was immediate and total. Superman's confident posture, commanding presence, and softer but more authoritative voice helped to distinguish him from Clark Kent. This was not simply a matter of taking off glasses or changing clothes. Reeve made it clear that Clark Kent and Superman were two very different people. Superman was someone who stood tall, both physically and morally. He spoke with clarity and conviction, but his voice was never brash or condescending. There was a quiet confidence about him, an inner peace that came from his unshakable belief in doing what was right. His smile, warm and reassuring, was a beacon of hope, a symbol of the goodness that Superman represented. What made Reeve's performance so remarkable was that he never overplayed either persona. His Clark Kent was not a joke, nor was his Superman too self-serious. Instead, Reeve found a delicate balance between the two identities. He made the duality feel natural, with Clark serving as the humble, flawed man who eventually became the heroic and virtuous Superman. This contrast elevated the character, making him more relatable and multidimensional. Another critical component of Reeve's performance was the charm and confidence he exuded as Superman. Reeve's Superman was not only strong and invincible, but also kind, comforting, and approachable. His Superman wasn't the type of hero who dominated every scene with overwhelming strength or bravado. Instead, he brought a calm sense of authority that put others at ease. Reeve's Superman didn't need to boast or show off his powers. His very presence conveyed the sense that he could be trusted, that he would always be there when you needed him. This effortless confidence made Reeve's Superman a perfect role model. He was someone you could look up to without feeling inferior. His smile was never condescending. Rather, it was reassuring, conveying warmth and understanding. In a world that often feels uncertain and chaotic, Superman, as portrayed by Reeve, was a symbol of stability and moral clarity. His charm wasn't overbearing or arrogant. It was genuine, a reflection of his deep-rooted belief in doing what was right. Reeve's Superman made goodness feel attainable. He didn't just talk about doing the right thing, he embodied it in every action. His kindness was evident in even the smallest moments, whether he was offering a comforting word to Lois Lane or rescuing a helpless citizen from a burning building. These actions, however spectacular, always felt authentic. There was never a sense that Superman was showing off or performing for an audience. His heroism came from a place of deep personal conviction. Perhaps one of the most striking aspects of Reeve's Superman was his refusal to play the role with irony or sarcasm. In an era when self-aware humor and deconstruction of superhero tropes were becoming increasingly popular, Reeve's approach was refreshingly earnest. This was not an oversight or a lack of self-awareness on his part. It was a deliberate choice to treat the character with respect and to allow Superman's inherent goodness to shine through without mocking or undermining it. In a world where superheroes are often portrayed as flawed or morally ambiguous, Reeve's Superman was a beacon of virtue and hope. There was no hint of sarcasm, no winking to the camera, and no acknowledgement of the absurdity of being a man who could fly and stop bullets with his chest. Instead, Reeve played Superman with the same seriousness and commitment that the character embodied in the comics. The absence of irony allowed Superman's moral clarity to shine through, making him a figure people could admire and believe in. This approach is part of what made Reeve's performance so enduring. He played a character who represented the very best of humanity, someone who could be both superhuman and deeply compassionate, someone who could be invincible but still humble. By playing Superman with absolute sincerity, Reeve made it possible for people to believe in a world where such goodness and heroism were not only possible, but necessary. Christopher Reeve's portrayal of Superman is a shining example of how an actor can take an iconic, larger-than-life character and imbue him with such depth, sincerity, and humanity that he transcends the screen. Reeve's Superman was not defined by his superhuman strength or his ability to fly. It was defined by his moral integrity, his compassion, and his unyielding belief in doing what was right. Reeve brought to the role a remarkable combination of warmth, charm, and confidence that made Superman not just a hero, but an aspirational figure. His performance made people believe that such goodness could exist in the world, that someone could be truly heroic, not because of their powers, but because of their heart. In doing so, Reeve created a Superman who was as much a symbol of hope as he was a superhero, a legacy that continues to resonate with people around the world.